Hello, BookTube. All right, we're going to press on with 4K Q&A. This is turning into quite the debacle, but none of you have to watch if you don't want to. So we'll just move on. We're now, I don't know how many videos this is going to be. I'm sort of cutting them all off at around 20 minutes. So when you get back from your, what do you call it? Your job this evening, you might find just a barrage, a ridiculous barrage of videos. Feel free to pick and choose at your leisure. Let's see here. So we're up to a question by Brenda Lipko. Uh, Congratulations on your momentous milestone. Well, thank you. I'm wondering, as your fame continues to rise, if if you have any plans to change the name of your channel to the Steve and Frida Show. Now, eyes on the prize, people. Eyes on the prize. Yes, Frida is cute, but I'm cuter. Okay. Gail Dowdy says, "How did you lose your Boston accent? If you were going to choose two books of lit crit, not the school kind, the review in-depth kind, which two would you recommend?" Well, first question is, I haven't lost my Boston accent. I just control it. That's all. You put me in a restaurant in Southie, it'll come back. I'll talk that way. But I have a bit of a facility for languages, so I tend not to hold on to a thick accent of any kind. You can definitely perceive it in my day-to-day speech, but otherwise I just keep it to myself. Otherwise this whole channel would be in a thick Boston accent, and who would want that? And then if you were going to choose two books of lit crit, which two would you recommend? Well, I think I know what kind of lit crit you're talking about. Unfortunately, the New York Review of Books just made that easy, because they just published the collected essays of Elizabeth Hardwick. That is a place to start. Most certainly, that is a place to start. But also, if you go to your used bookstore or your library, years and years and years ago, 30 years ago, 25 years ago, the novelist V.S. Pritchett came out with an enormous 1,200-page book of his collected short stories and another 1,200-page book of his collected essays. And that book by V.S. Pritchett of his collected essays is really, really good. If you see it for sale, grab it, absolutely. But it might be at your library as well. He is a really good place to start in terms of reading really engaged, interesting literary criticism of the type you were talking about. Same thing with Anthony Burgess. Same thing also, much as I hate to say it, with John Updike. I think he did 5 collections of his various book ruminations, and they're not deep, but they're really interesting. He was almost never not interesting when writing about other people's books. He was just boring when he wrote his own books. Highbury says, "Congratulations to Steve and Frida on 4K. Oh, for Pete's sakes. Frida has been a freeloader for almost all of those 4K, okay? Any chance you don't like Stephen King because you read the advanced copy of Cujo and it scarred you for life? No. No. Although I admit it didn't do I already hated Stephen King by that point, but it didn't do any favors for me any more than, on one, I was reading it on one level, I was thinking, okay, this is marginally competent, except that by page 200, all the characters stop behaving like people. Even people in crises. They stop behaving like anyone at all. After page 200 in Cujo, all of the characters in the book just start behaving like characters in a book. It's just the hand of the author reaching in and moving them around, and I've never understood why anyone would find that entertaining. And as King's career went on, the number of pages he needed to simply give up on telling a story and just move pieces around right in front of you shortened. So in Cujo, it's around page 200. But later on, it's page 50 and then 10, and now he does it right at the beginning. He does it right at the start. Right at the start, the characters are basically looking out through the fourth wall and saying, okay, we're here to do the new Stephen King novel. So on the one level I was reading, I was thinking, okay, up until around page 200, this is kind of sort of good. It's a little bit flat, a little bit programmatic, but kind of sort of good. But at the same time, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, this is going to do real harm for dogs. In the same way that I was thinking when I read Peter Benchley's Jaws, I was reading, and thinking, okay, this is really well done. This is well put together. But God, this is really bad news for sharks. People are going to kill them with abandon now that you're demonizing them. But anyway, no. So no, it didn't scar me for life. No. This has gone on so long that the laptop is asking for electric power. Good Lord. And then what did you ask again? You asked, over the years, have you had a chance to meet and get to know great authors? Yes, I have. I've got a chance to meet them. I've got a chance to get to know them. I've got a chance to sleep with them. I've got a chance to bail them out. I've got a chance to bail them in. I've got a chance to do their work for them. I've got a chance to stand at their weddings. I've got a chance to be present for moral support at their divorces. And I've also had a chance to stand at their graves. The whole 9 yards, the whole pupil life cycle of an author, I have been an intimate part of many times. Yes. Gemma O'Brien says, I have a question. If there was one question you could ask all of us so we could answer it all in the comments, like lame-ass booktube friends that we are, what would it be? I have a question. I have asked it to many people. I've asked it on this channel many times. I've yet to receive an answer that makes any kind of sense to me, and I don't expect to. I think it's just one of those questions in life that's not going to have a sensible answer. But my question would be, why on earth do you watch this channel? I was pointing this out to somebody in Skype the other day. I went back at random and looked at one of my videos. I almost have it in front of me here. I can almost find it. Here, let me see if I can find it. I went back at random and looked at one of my videos. What was it called? I'll tell you the exact one. It could have been anything, but I just landed at random on where was it? It wasn't that long ago. Here, bear with me here. Just amuse yourselves for a minute. The Holy Roman Empire was neither holy nor Roman nor an empire. Discuss. It wasn't that long ago. It was this year. Or no, maybe it wasn't. Well, okay. I'm not finding it here, and I don't want to strain your patience. Oh no, here it is. Yes, it was from December 18th of last year. It's called A Tesseract of Tasty Temptations, and it's 26 minutes long, which ought to disqualify it right there. But I went back and looked at that video and watched it. I watched the 26 minutes of it, and when I was done, this question was in my mind more than ever. Why would anybody watch this channel? It's a admittedly animated old man who's talking about stuff that's not out yet, making allusions to stuff that only a small fraction of his viewers have probably heard about, and who's telling all sorts of private jokes and quoting all sorts of books and screenplays and movies merely to amuse himself. I don't understand why you people watch this channel. Now, don't get me wrong. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm devoted to you all, and I'm honored by getting a chance to talk to you every day. But I don't understand. All right, well, you ask. That's the question that I would ask, hands down. Why on earth do you watch this channel? There's no pretty background. There are no fairy lights. There's no real attempt at the kind of all things to all people, every man, teddy bear rounded at the corners. I'm not meaning any criticism. I'm not saying anything negative. We're all sort of having a book sleepover. There's nothing like that. There are hard edges all over the place here. Yet, anyway, let's just move on because there's no answer to that question. I already know it. Jovita at Inky Impressions says congratulations, but does not ask me a question about how sexy I am. Matthew L. says, what is your opinion of Theodore Dreiser, specifically American Tragedy? I really like an American Tragedy, although I don't think that Dreiser was a natural writer of fiction. His fiction is a little leaden, usually. Certainly in American Tragedy, there are long stretches that are just reportage. I'm curious if you are perhaps the reviewer on Kirkus who called it America's Crime and Punishment. I certainly am not. I certainly am not. No. I, for one, love the book. One of my favorite reads of 2017. Well, I wholeheartedly recommend Dreiser, but I didn't call it America's Crime and Punishment. No. Valentina Garcia says, congratulations. How many dogs have you had over the years? I don't know. I have no idea. Sue's Book Nook adds a note saying she was going to ask the same thing. Could you include some of their names in your answer? I could. Quite a few. More than I can name. There was Judge, who was blind, was born without eyes. There was Moro, actually M-O-R-O, one of my great. For a long time, I had one group of Beagles, and he was one of them. Judge and Moro, and Waste Not and Want Not, and Aiden, who was my friend for 23 years. Went everywhere together. Spent a whole bunch of time together. And there was Lucy and Malin, of course, and now there's Frida, and there was Weiser and Dooley, and there was one particular beagle. There was one particular beagle more than any other, one dog more than any other, the best friend I've ever had in my life of any species. It's possible that one or two people watching this channel met him. There were a lot of dogs, most of them beagles, a line of beagles going back to the crack of doom. Then Elia Bracket #1 says, "Are you a vegan?" I am. It's easy. Mark Jackson says, "Congratulations, Steve. Thank you very much. I don't have a specific question, but echoing some other comments, I'd be interested to hear more about the different languages you read, how you learn them, why you chose them, your favorite, etc." There was no why. There was no artificial game plan of, this year I want to do such and such. It's always been just that I was at the window looking in on a literature that I wanted to read something in, and that was the way to do it. Like I said, fortunately, I have a bit of an aptitude, so I was able to do that without much trouble. Kyle Eckelbarger says, "I always wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on James Joyce, in particular Finnegan's Wake, whether or not you think it's a book that should be read, and whether it's worthy of the praise being praised as highly as it is." It's, of course, not worthy of being praised as highly as it is. No book could be. But also, I think that Joyce is all gimmick. He's all hat and no cattle. Even in his short stories can be bearable because they were all done with editors. But the two big novels, such a waste of time. I mean, there's no sense in me saying this now because young readers especially view them as Mount Everest and K2. You have to read them. They're drawn to them like they are to David Foster Wallace, and there's no sense telling them not to bother. And as those books get older and become more influential and start to cast a literary shadow of their own, it's also not right to tell them not to bother, because the books themselves have started wedging themselves into the genetic code of what modern literature is. But are they worth adulation? No. Are they any good? No. No. Neither one of them. Neither one of them is. But anyway, let's see here. Wilson Shugart says, "You look absolutely fabulous for a 28-year-old. Well, thank you. What's your secret? Clean living." Also, who's done your favorite translation of Horace, and what about Ovid? I have never encountered a translation of Horace that I thought was universally good. The translators who can do one poem well maybe can do a second, but his whole body of work, no. I've never found it. And for Ovid, for the Metamorphoses anyway, it would be Horace Gregory, a translation that's something like 70 years old, that does a really good job. Never seen anybody do a better job, including my beloved Alan Mandelbaum. But even there, the longer I go along at being 28, the more I see limitations in English language translations of Latin. So, sounds like we have some sort of emergency. Okay, stopped. Good. Let's see here. Wait, ELA Bracket #1 is back. Questions are brimming over in my head. Marvel or DC? DC, please. Pizza or sushi? Sushi. Uncooked fish. No thanks. Pizza. Very much so. Captain America or Superman? Superman. Batman or Iron Man? Batman. Do you think Jane Austen is overhyped? It is not possible to overhype the Divine Jane. Watch yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. What about other best-selling authors like John Green or Stephen King? What about them? They're both crap. Tea or coffee? No artificial stimulants of any kind. What book do you think has the most beautiful cover? Well, there are a million examples. The most recent one that's stuck in my mind is The Essex Serpent, which has a very lovely cover. And then he says, "Okay, I'm done." And that's good, because we're running out of time for this again. I'm actually coming close to maxing out the memory on this MacBook. We're doing so many of these. Let's push on a little further here. Eileen Citero says, "I would love to hear more about your dogs, breeds, how you manage to take them along with you on your travels, your communication with them, anything else you'd like to share." Unrelated, but can you recommend books on Shetland history? I cannot recommend any books on Shetland history, no. As in terms of dogs, the breed has almost always been beagles. It was only I made a decision a while ago, no more beagles. And then shortly after that decision, my last 2 beagles died, and I've never gone back. So I moved from there to a basset hound and a pointer, and now a miniature schnauzer, my very first terrier. But by far the bulk have been beagles. So that when an old friend gets back in touch with you through Twitter or Facebook, their inevitable first question is, how many beagles do you have right now? And they're always amazed when I tell them I don't have any. And what was that again? How I can take them on my travels is because I traveled a long time ago. I'm exceedingly old. And your communications with them is not anything that I can describe in English. I've already tried many times and I never succeed. I grew up with them. I learned how to speak with them before I learned how to speak with humans. I know what they mean. I know what they say. I know how they talk. That's why I find so many scientific studies about canine communication so frustrating, because it's just humans doing a whole bunch of... Anyway, let's move on here. Dale Cook says, congratulations on 4K. Great achievement in such a short time. I agree. I'm amazed. Is there any chance you could do a video about your life so far? Well, that'd be kind of boring, wouldn't it? I think it would be very interesting to know about your education, languages spoken, travel experiences, jobs you've had. Anyway, my question would be, how did you get into reviewing books for people and companies? Well, I don't review books for companies, but I got into it because I was working at a newspaper and I got to know the books editor, the book section editor. And when he suggested that I review a book for him, I said yes and gave it a try and really liked it. And I kept doing it and did more and more of it and realized I really liked it. I really enjoy it. I love being part of that conversation, multi-voice conversation. And it just took on from there. The more you do, the more you can do, which is kind of the point I want to make to a lot of people who tell me that they want to break into book reviewing. And I want to point out to them, okay, you're telling me that you want to break into book reviewing, but in this entire week, it's not Sunday. In the entire stretch of time between now and last Sunday, you didn't write a book review, not one. So I don't know exactly how that works. Anyway, Jeff Harper says, I have a question which I've been asked before, but not perhaps recently. Do you like physical books? I do, but not nearly as much as electronic books. Electronic books are so much nicer, and the technology to read them could be much better. An electronic book that looks like a book, that acts like a book, turns pages like a book, feels in your hand like a book, I think that would be wonderful. And could be infinitely superior to any of the reading tablets that I use. But anyway, I know you've said that you are very happy with your electronic device, but you have many, many books which could be replaced by ebooks. Wouldn't you prefer shelves of pot plants and knickknacks? I wouldn't prefer pot plants and knickknacks, but I do have ebooks that could be physical books that could be replaced by ebooks, and slowly they are. It's ridiculous to have this many books, printed books, but I imagine an e-reader that is different from the kind that we have now. Imagine an e-reader that felt and looked like a book. And you open it up, and instead of tabbing, instead of touching the pages to turn them, you have like 6 filament pages that you turn that fill with the pages of the text. And then you go back to the beginning and you keep turning pages again. You can take notes on them. And if it were the size and shape of a book and the relative weight of a book, well, if that weight were memory and storage, imagine how infinite it would be if you took up that space, which is that kind of a weight and feel in the hand is what readers are accustomed to anyway. So they won't care that an electronic book has that weight, and it would be a vast amount for... I think there's innovation to be done on the delivery device of electronic books that would make the whole thing a lot better. Anyway, oh God, we're at 20 minutes again. Good Lord. JPD Man C says, as we all hang on your every word regarding books, which critics do you respect, if any, either current or from the past? Whose words do you hang on? With regard to reviewing and critical analysis, whether it be books, music, theater, or any arts, What advice would you give to any budding reviewers? I think you may have answered this before, but we'll go again. Have you ever written a book or attempted to? And a final one for you now. What did you do before entering the world of bookselling? A potted life history, please. All right, well, let's go at these. I think we should wrap this up for now. In terms of other critics, living or dead, there are tons of them, from John Dryden all the way to the present. John Dryden all the way up to Edmund Wilson, Virginia Woolf, the goddess of all our idolatries, and a whole bunch of living people that write about books for money all the time. Learn something from all of them. I don't know that I hang on their words. I have been at this a long time. I really don't. Unless it's someone who's going to see more deeply into something and maybe teach me that way. But in terms of seeing what's there, I don't particularly need help with that. But you ask, what advice would I give to budding reviewers of critical analysis of any of these things? It's the same advice I give on everything. It's so boring. I'm sorry, but there's no other alternative to it, and that is practice. If you want to get good at something, you have to practice at it. An enormous amount of practice. So again, like what I was saying, somebody tells me, I'd really like to get into the world of reviewing. I say to them, okay, well, what's the last book you reviewed? And I say, I've never reviewed a book before. Well, okay, why not? What's stopping you? Are you in Stalinist Russia or something? What's stopping you from doing it? And also, people who have written a few book reviews, I say, well, what do you want to do? And they say, well, I'd really like to parlay this into a career. And I say, oh, okay, well, where are the rest of your book reviews? And they say, there aren't any. It's just these 6. Practice is my answer to budding critics of anything. Practice. And then, have you ever written a book or attempted to? I've written many books. Yes, I love it. I love the experience of doing it. And what did you do before entering the world of bookselling? I reviewed books. It's kind of the worm Ouroboros here. It goes back and forth between the two for pretty much my whole life with books. Oh, and then he comes back. All right, we'll finish up with him. I had 2 questions in my mind. Someone beat me to the Hyde Cottage one. The question I think we're coming up on it is, why is my house called Hyde Cottage? Why shouldn't it be called Hyde Cottage? What's wrong with Hyde Cottage? My other one was simple and not too taxing. Apart from the Brattle, what was or is your favorite used bookstore? I'm assuming used, because nobody can have a favorite retail bookstore anymore. But once upon a time, as existing now, it'd be the Strand in New York City. But once upon a time, there was a bookstore in Hermosa Beach called the Either Or Bookstore, which I was very fond of. And then PRCZEK02 thought, what is the best way to learn a language? Any tips? Say it with me now. Practice. Practice. There's no magic bullet to any of this stuff. You want to do something that requires lots and lots of work, you have to practice. So pick a language and practice it. Write it all the time, speak it all the time, read about it all the time, read in it all the time. Andrew B. says, how long did it take you to learn Latin? Not much time. And he also says we want another Q&A, and boy, oh boy, are you getting one of those. These things are going on forever. And then we're gonna wrap it up there. So that is this batch, and then the next batch we will start off with Wild Reads. He will be at the top of the roster in the next one. Thank you, BookTube.